Welcome to the Popular Pig Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rooda, and joining us today is the immediate past president of the National Pork Board, Al Wulfekuhle. How are you doing today, Al?
I'm doing great, Matthew.
Excited to have you on the podcast. This is the first time we're doing one in person, and honored to have you in to talk about your story. Before we get started, could you give us a little bit of an overview of what your life looks like today as an independent pork producer and your role within National Pork Board?
Yeah, today I have a great group of employees that pretty much run the hog farm for me, and we're about 48,000 pigs sold per year. As immediate past president of the National Pork Board, it's been a very busy summer. I think a lot of people know we had to do a search committee and find ourselves a new CEO, and we're excited to share that news too. And then on the home front, we built a new home last year on Lake Delhi, and we moved farther from the farm and trying to enjoy a little more downtime in my end of my career.
Is that what downtime looks like, being on the lake?
It is for my wife. For me, it's a lot of running to the farm shop and going to a lot of meetings, but it'll slow down here in the next year.
Can you give us a little bit of an update on that selection, David Newman, president or CEO? What was that process like?
Yeah, so Bill even announced he was going to retire or resign from the pork board come May 1st, and he gave us about 3 weeks' notice, which is a pretty short notice. So as president of National Pork Board at that time, it's my job to put together a search committee and look for the new CEO. And so I did that, had a great group of people, and we got together, put together a personality profile, a job description, and then we hired a national search firm to help us look for candidates. And they came through and they previewed close to 250 candidates.
Holy cow.
Plus we had 3 internals that we thought very highly of. And we did interviews with about a dozen of the top that came to the top. Ended up with the 3 internals were our top 3s, which says a lot about the talent and the passion for our employees and for the National Pork Board. And then we went through that process. We brought 3 of them to in-person interviews in Chicago just a few weeks ago. So the 3 internal candidates gave us their plan for the first 100 days, and it pretty obvious. And it just, we had one person rise to the top through the whole process, and this person really nailed it with the first 100 days, just showing his passion and his just love for the industry and his expertise and everything he's gone through in his life. And we ended up choosing Dr. David Newman, who is right now our VP of Marketing, which takes care of our domestic marketing campaign and international marketing. And the other 2 candidates are great, and we really need them to stay with us at Pork Board to take us to the next level. But Dr. David Newman rose to the top, and he's our new CEO as of September 1st.
That seemed like such a good fit, given that the domestic demand has been such a massive topic of late, and he's been able to drive that as of late, and it just seemed like he was in a perfect position to elevate his role and continue that goal.
Yeah, Matthew, after 2023, I think it was in the January board meeting, 2023, and I asked the question to the board, is there more we can do more for producers? And the resounding answer is we have to do more for producers. They just went through the toughest time in history of pig production, the highest cost to raise a pig we ever had, and the highest per pig losses. And we produce one product, right? We produce pork. And if we can't sell pork,
then what are we doing?
Nothing else matters, right? And so we as a board said we need to staff up. We need to make this our number one priority. And bringing David Newman in was the perfect choice. And then we brought some other key talent in too to help us with the campaign, and we're off and running. And it's been an amazing journey, and we have a lot more to come.
So before we go way back to the beginning, I want to hit on a couple other things that you had talked about, just because the great thing about these podcasts is you get to know people better. And you got to take some time off this summer and go to Colorado and New York and Templeton, which that's a really cool story. But sounds like you've had experience in pioneering your own whitewater raft in the past, and you did that again?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm pretty adventurous, and I like to do some challenging things. And so I went to Colorado with my one son, and I told my two sons that I wanted to hike one more mountain, one more 14er before I got too old. And I'm 66, I'm not young anymore. And we got to the top of the mountain, so that was pretty amazing with Brett. And then we went to a concert in Red Rocks. Great trip. But my other son invited us on a vacation with their family. They have 4 kids, and went to the Finger Lakes region in upstate New York. Beautiful country, deep glacier lakes, a lot of waterfall hikes. But my son asked me if I'd want a whitewater raft, and so we hopped on this river, and there wasn't enough guides for all the guide boats, and the guide captain asked if anybody would want to pioneer their own boat, and I said, hell yeah. And so I got to guide my own raft down the Whitewater Rapids, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've always heard that upstate New York was beautiful, but you had also been to that Maine area, New Hampshire area, and you said this compared pretty closely to that, didn't it?
It did, and I had no idea, but there's like 130 wineries on the Finger Lakes too, and my wife loves to do wine tasting and go to wineries, so we had a lot of fun. Great time.
So you also had the opportunity to visit Templeton Rye, and apparently there's this intersection between bourbon or rye and pig production. Can you tell us what you learned there? Because this is fascinating to me as somebody who enjoys the history of bourbon.
Matthew, amazing story. So every year, Iowa Pork goes to the hometown of their president. Our president is Aaron Juergens this year, and he's from Carroll, Iowa. And we did meetings there, visited a few industries, but then we took a night off and went to Templeton, which was very close. And the story of Templeton Rye and pig production intersecting is pretty amazing. So during Prohibition, the town of Templeton got together and they said, we're going to continue making whiskey. This is kind of our livelihood. This is what we need to do. So the town priest, the constable, everybody was in on this. And they built most of the stills. They moved them into the basement of hog barns. And then when the feds heard about this little town in Iowa, in Templeton, making whiskey, they couldn't find the stills because they were looking for the smell, because when you distill whiskey, the stills put out an odor. Pigs overwhelm that odor. They were looking for mash, and the pigs were eating the mash. So they couldn't find any of the byproduct of making whiskey. And then in the wintertime, they were looking for buildings that had the snow melted off the roofs because, again, stills put out heat, so do pigs. So they'd come to this town, they'd ask all the townspeople, and everybody denied that they were making whiskey. They'd drive around the countryside, they couldn't smell any whiskey, they couldn't find any mash, and it's just an amazing story. And a lot of the wealthy pig farm owners, landowners in Carroll County today are ancestors of the people that were making whiskey back in Prohibition, because they had money to buy land when nobody else did. So what an amazing story, whiskey and pigs.
Yeah, it's super cool. And then the stuff that distillery, Templeton, still does today for that community, and some of the unique releases they have, it's just a really cool business all in all.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So speaking of business, history, can you take us to the very beginning of your family farm, or how that got started? Did you always want to be in pig production? What was it like as a kid? Did you grow up around a farm?
Yeah, so I grew up on a small 140-acre farm. I think my dad had 90 sows, farrow to finish. The very first pig I owned, it's an interesting story. It was the Great Jones County Fair, and they had a grease pig contest. So they turned these teenage boys out into the show ring, and they had a couple of barrels out there, and they grease up these feeder pigs, like 40, 50-pound pigs. And if you can catch a grease pig and get it up on the barrel, you get to keep it. And so I did it, and ended up taking that pig home. I grew it up. It was a gilt. It was a female, so I bred it, and that's my entry into pig production.
Oh, my goodness.
That was my first pigs I ever owned.
What genetic pig was it?
It was a white pig, and I don't even know.
Okay.
All I know is white. At that time, it was just a pig.
And so how did things progress from there? You bred the first sow, but did you know that's what you wanted to be doing? When was that moment of, I think I'm going to make this my life's career and passion?
Oh, that moment was my before my senior year, because I always worked for my dad, and he was a small pig farmer, and we had outside lots, and my job is pretty much scooping manure and scraping hog floors, and I really didn't care for it. And then I worked for this large farmer, and he had nice equipment. He had a farm shop. He waxed his tractors. I mean, he had a really nice hog facilities. and I thought, man, I want to be like him someday. And that was really my turning point. Up until then, up until I worked for this neighboring farmer, I didn't have much of a desire.
Yeah, I grew up in it my whole life, and similar situation. Was walk-in finishers, managing nurseries, power washing, selling hogs, but it was a means to an end. It was the paycheck, something that paid well, that I knew how to do.
Yep.
But there wasn't a lot of passion behind this is going to be what I'm doing for the rest of my life. And then when I went to college and had the opportunity to work for Schneider Pork Farms over near Waterloo, and due to some significant turnover, had a lot of responsibility and got to really learn a lot from Dr. Schneider. It made me look at things through a different lens, through the system as a whole, not just the job itself or the task itself. And then as I became more aware of everything that the industry is doing collaboratively with one another to try to improve the overall product, the overall industry, the pig, I definitely got my passion at that point. But it's funny how as a kid you grow up into it. A lot of people will say, as a kid, I always knew I wanted to do this. That was never the case until I got to see the bigger picture.
Yeah, it really wasn't with me either until I saw what was the opportunity out there, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
So what was that next step you took when you knew this is what I wanted to do? Because one sow with a litter, that's not enough.
Right. So I think the next step was my current wife, Kathy. Yeah, she was my high school sweetheart, right? So I had to convince her to move to a farm that I had found 32 miles away, and my dad helped me get this farm, and we started. I was 19, she was 20. We got married, and we moved down the road, and we started our own hog operation separate from my dad's, and that was my start. Small operation there to start with too, and it was pretty much a rundown hog farm, but sometimes that was the best of times.
So what year was that, and how many hogs did you start with?
Yeah, that was 1979, and my dad gave me half of the gilts, so I had 90 gilts to start with, and he gave me 45 of them as a wedding present, and we just started from there. I think I sold 1,300 pigs my first year.
So what did your wife originally want to do? Was this something she always knew she wanted to be a farmer's wife or own a farm someday, or did she want to do something else, and what was that conversation like?
Yeah, so the first year out of high school, I worked for my dad, and she went to X-ray tech school, and she made the sacrifice to come farm with me, and she's been my partner and my biggest fan and biggest critic ever since.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So how did the operations grow throughout the 80s and the 90s, and how did that all time itself with some of the really trialing periods in that era?
Yeah, great question. So started out, young and enthusiastic, and all you thought you had to do was work hard, and you're going to, do very well in life. And we bought the farm, bought 180 acres with a beginning farmer loan in 1980. So I was 20 years old, and I bought a 180 acre farm with help from USDA loan program. By 1986, that farm was worth half of what I paid for it, and my net worth was below zero. And I remember sitting on a fence. We just had pigs in open lots at that time. We just loaded them. It was always Kathy and me loading pigs, and I remember breaking down and saying, Kathy, if you want me to do something else, I'll do it, because we're struggling. We're having kids, we're starting a family, and our net worth is below zero, and things didn't look very good at that time, Matthew.
No, it had to be terrifying.
Yeah, and she said, no, this is your passion, we'll make it.
And you did.
Yeah, but it was tough. But then things turned around, and then a lot of opportunities came, and we took them and went from there.
So following that, following 86, it very quickly would have turned into the wave of the new model of production. Mm-hmm. Was that next opportunity that came along? How did your path align with that change, and what were some of those immediate opportunities or patiently waited for opportunities that came after 86 that made you move in the right direction?
So being in the situation I was to expand, it was renting cattle lots from neighbors. It was renting hog buildings from neighbors, going up and down the road with a 40-20 with a heat houser and a mixer mill. And we used a lot of cornstalk bales. And then in 1994, I thought, I'm ready. I'm going to build a confinement barn. So I had a 1,200 head barn, and I went to 3 bankers, and they all said no. You don't have enough equity for us to lend you the money, and it was tough. I thought I was ready, and because of my net worth not being there, they said no. My veterinarian at the time, Dr. Don Bowden, said, I'm going to take you to my banker, and I'm going to tell him to give you a loan. And that's what he did. He took me to the bank in Independence, Iowa, which I didn't bank at because my bank turned me down. And we went to the upstairs office of the bank president, and he sat down and he said, you need to give this guy a loan. And he did. And it was, again, he worked with FSA in the beginning farmer loan program, but that bank took a risk on me because of what a veterinarian asked him to do as a friend and a business partner. So pretty cool story.
That is. It's wild how good of an example that is of just the way you treat people, your relationships.
Yeah.
It doesn't always just come down to numbers and logic.
It doesn't, man.
It's emotional.
It's about surrounding yourself with good people, and they'll help you out. You be good to them, and they'll help you.
That's so cool. And so you got the loan.
Yep.
You built the barn, and how big was it again?
It was 1,200 head.
1,200 head. Had you visited a confinement site prior to applying for the loan, or?
I had, and it was interesting at the time. When I started, Dr. Al Lehman was going around doing, I'd call them road shows, where he'd put on meetings. And I was like his disciple, man. I read everything I could about him, and I went to like 3 meetings in a row. And he's like, "You're like a groupie. You follow me around." and then all of a sudden he's gone, right?
Yeah.
And tragic how we lost him. But I would call him one of my inspirations, and a reason I got into modern hog production, I guess you would call it.
What were some things that he did that really stuck out to you as you remember him, and what is a fond memory you might have? I never had the honor of getting to meet him.
Oh, he just made it sound easy. And one thing he said, and we still struggle with as an industry to this day, is you have to have pigs there when the markets are good. And they're good every summer, and that's when we sell the least amount of pork every summer, because every winter we struggle with disease, and we struggle with getting things bred in the heat of the summer, and that's the pigs that are sold the next summer. And then every summer pigs slow down. They don't eat as much when it's hot. And so I remember him saying that, and then just the example of you've got to have pigs to sell when the prices are really good. And to try to remember that in marketing too, that you can't miss the good times. I think that was probably the biggest, and just the inspiration that there's a future in this industry. Yeah.
So then you moved into the late 90s, and that wasn't easy either. But it sounds like you might have had 4 or 5 years, or 4 years headed into that, which probably helped a decent amount. How did things change for you and your family and your business as you went through the 90s and into the early 2000s?
So this same veterinarian that helped me get the hog loan in 1997, he came to me and said, I'm managing a large sow farm that's struggling to get pigs bred, getting sows bred, getting pigs on the ground. Would you help me with that? And first I said, no, I'm too busy, Doc. I can't do this. And then he asked again, and I said, okay, I'll take a day off. I'll go through. I'll look at everything they're doing. I'll talk to the employees, and I'll write up a report, and I'll bring it to the board meeting, the owners meeting. And so I did that, went with Doc Bowden and went to this meeting, and I didn't know they were in financial problems. There were 6 bankers in the room when I gave my report.
Oh, wow.
And by the next day, they had hired me and Doc Bowden to contract manage the sow farm. And that's how I got into contract management of other sow farms.
You cannot plan for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it was the start of a really tough time for a big part of the industry. Was some of an opportunity for me.
Yeah.
And then in 1999, one of the sow farms I was managing came to me and said, why don't you just buy this from me? There's like 5 owners in that sow farm. And I said, well, I can't afford to do that myself, but I can ask some friends in the industry, and maybe I can put a group together and do that. And that's when we bought a farm and renamed it New Horizons Pork. And we grew that farm from a 900 sows farrow to feeder pig to 2,400 sows farrow to finish by the time I was ready to sell my shares in it. And I did that in 2014. So that was a fun experience. But again, it's some of the toughest times are when you have the most opportunities. And that's what 98 turned into me. I survived it, and I had some great opportunities to move forward.
You probably know we talk a lot about innovation in pork production here. What you might not know is SwineTech, the team behind this podcast, is leading the charge with their PigFlow platform. SwineTech is dedicated to empowering pork producers worldwide to provide high-quality, individualized care for every pig. Their world-class workforce management and point-of-care platform, PigFlow, streamlines, automates, and monitors routine and emergency care, communication, daily workflows, administrative duties, and herd diagnostics. This enables producers to optimize workflow and task clarity, execution efficiency, prioritization, and simplification of compliance assessments. PigFlow empowers managers with the ability to analyze and refine their processes and make adjustments to enhance overall value. If you're interested in learning how producers are maximizing their resources, enhancing efficiencies, and improving employee engagement in pig care with PigFlow, visit swinetechnologies.com.
So 14, that was PED year.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any, did that have anything to do with the 14 getting out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
So growing this sow farm, managing other sow farms at the same time, I think we're doing like 6 different sow farms kind of spread out over parts of Iowa. It was getting very stressful. And 2014 profits were really good, and I went to my partners in New Horizons and said, I want to slow down. I want to de-stress a little bit. Why don't you buy out my share? And they did. And that's about the time I got involved with Iowa Pork. I wanted to start giving back to the industry because the industry had been good to me.
So before we hop into Iowa Pork, from the time that you started with your wife to that moment, what were a couple of your proudest moments through those decades?
Proudest moments through those decades. I think being able to bring producers together. I think I look back and I love fixing problems. I love helping people. It's always been part of my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And overseeing other sow farms allowed me to do that. But then also to put groups together like New Horizons and some other deals that I got into. I started working with a farm on my own operation. He wanted to get out of the hog operation, and it had a small feed mill on it. And we're still using that feed mill today. It looks a lot different than it does, and we're still using that sow farm today. We ended up buying it all from him. But just those relationships you build and the great people you get to work with in this industry. That's probably one of the best things.
Well, and you raised an entire family
exactly
through that time frame too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty stressful. I look back and my wife's going to be a saint someday, but I look back and think, man, I wish I would have spent a little more time with my family because I was so driven.
Yeah.
But man, Matthew, my kids have turned out so great. Yeah, they're all highly successful. They have their own careers. They're married. I've got 9 grandkids from 3 to 17 years old. Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment right there.
Yeah, we're expecting our first in January.
Congratulations.
So that's exciting. Thank you. And you talk to people who have done well in life and their kids are doing well as well. And that's always a seemingly battle of spending more time. Mm-hmm. But then the kids, as they get older, they really point to the hard work, the good work ethic, just the example that their parents have set for them and how that was so meaningful and helpful for them as they grew older. And that's got to be hard, figuring out how to be a good example, but then also to be able to spend that time. And it sounds like you did good with both, but it's got to be hard to not want more of one or the other at points in time.
Right. And our 3 kids all worked side by side with us growing up, right? It was just almost expected that they're going to help out on the farm. And I remember, because I had asked my kids many times, you want the opportunity to farm with me? And they pretty much all said the same thing, Matthew. They said, hey, Dad, thanks for the work ethic, but I think we'll do our own thing. So,
yeah, I think that's a blessing that people who grew up on a farm get to have that we just have far less of today.
Yeah.
And that's that ability to have worked elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder with your dad, your grandpa, your mom, your grandma. And my grandparents, one set had a residential real estate business. The other set had 200 sow farrow to finish operation. And so I got to do those things, but you just don't see it much anymore. And there's such amazing memories on the farm, being able to ride in the tractor or go and process pigs. And even when the job sucked, you got to do it with your grandpa or with your dad. And it's so meaningful.
It's funny you call it a blessing, Matthew, because
In the moment.
my oldest, my daughter, she has her own business and she just works her tail off and puts tons of hours in nights and weekends. And she calls it the Wulfekuhle curse. She doesn't call it a blessing. It's like she can't sit still and she's got to always be working, and she calls it a curse. So it's funny you call it a blessing.
Yeah, my wife and I were watching football yesterday. NFL was on, and I had been fairly productive, but I was like, man, I feel like I've been lazy today. And she's like, that's a problem you need to work on, because I'm the same way. I have a really hard time sitting still.
Yeah.
And it just feels like the older you get, the more you can do, and it just doesn't ever slow down.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yes.
A lot of fun. So let's talk about Iowa Pork. You joined that in 2014, or was it 15? It's 2014, right?
I joined that in about 2013.
Okay.
Yes. And then was president in 2016.
Okay.
And it was kind of ironic because I was president the year that Pat McGonigal became our CEO, right? And so the two of us got to figure things out together a little bit. Rich Degner, our past CEO CEO of Iowa Pork. Rich Degner, our CEO of Iowa Pork, had just retired, but we kept him on retainer. So there'd be times Pat McGonigal and I would say, I wonder if we're doing this right. So we'd call Rich, and Rich would be very diplomatic and say, no, you're not quite doing that right. But we'd figured it out. We figured it out together, and I have a really good relationship with Pat McGonigal. Yeah, he's a great guy, and he's been really good for Iowa pork producers.
What were some of the problems that you kind of walked into as you decided to get more involved? What was Iowa Pork focused on in 13, 14, 15?
Iowa Pork, it's a little different than National Pork Board, because National Pork Board is research, education, promotion, and then National Pork Council does the public policy, the regulations, the trade deals, the lobbying. So Iowa Pork does both, right? And I think you'll find, like, in a lot of these state organizations, and we have 42 of them, 42 different state organizations underneath National Pork Board. But a lot of them, and Iowa's probably one of them, that emphasizes a little bit more of the public policy side than the research, education, and promotion. They do both, but when you get at the state level, they're dealing with, pushback on regulations and citing new hog barns. And we have activist friends that are always attacking our industry, and we feel the need to defend ourselves and our right to operate. And so that's always going on in Iowa. And Iowa does a really good job with that. Friends with the legislature, the lobbying part, just having an ear to the ground. If anybody's having trouble with any activist anywhere, we make sure we get into the communities and show all the good things that we're doing. So it's more grassroots, where National Pork Board is more the whole nation. We have to cover everybody.
Fair. And so what made you want to become president and give that a shot? And then beyond that, what inspired you to move on to the National Pork Board?
Becoming president of Iowa Pork, I think it's almost expected when I got on the leadership team. And I moved up fairly fast because we had somebody on the leadership team that declined to move up to become president, and we had another person that changed careers midstream and dropped off the leadership. And then all of a sudden, I'm like next in line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, no, it all worked out good. And, we're all here to try to make a difference. And I came on the board, not because I wanted something to do and I was bored. I came on because I really want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's what I've really tried hard to do in all these years that I've been involved, is to make a positive difference.
What were the things while you served as president that you're most proud of, the greatest accomplishments that you can look back on? But then also, what were some of the bigger challenges that maybe surprised you?
Yes. Some of the greatest accomplishments. I was on the advisory board for the veterinary diagnostic lab in Vet College.
Oh, that got all that.
Dr. Roger Main and Dr. Pat Halber, and being part of getting the new diagnostic lab pushed through, and to see that building. I don't know if you've ever been through it, but
it's impressive.
It's an amazing building, and it's great for the whole hog industry. We do more lab submissions at Iowa State's lab than any other lab in the country.
And it's just not that lab anymore, right? They just did an extension or an expansion here recently, didn't they? I think.
They're growing the lab and bringing it all up to current standards, and so they're slowly moving it out of the old lab into this one. And
it's exciting how much
now
it's
is
growing.
To get the last of it moved over there. Yeah, but the technology they have, the ability to do research. It's an interesting story. During COVID, they helped Iowa's labs, the University of Iowa, do COVID testing, because we at the diagnostic lab in Ames are set up for high-speed testing, and the University of Iowa's lab was not. And so Roger Main went over there, brought equipment, and showed them how to do testing fast. And it was an interesting story that it took an animal diagnostic lab to show a human diagnostic lab how to do things.
I think that was fascinating during the whole COVID situation, how much more prepared animal agriculture was to handle some of the issues than human health, just because of what animal health is regularly dealing with on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was pretty good. But yeah, it's a huge accomplishment, and it makes me feel really good to be part of getting that diagnostic lab. And what I did was a very small part, but what the Iowa Pork did, and being the first to put down the first million, and I got to be there when we broke the first ground with a golden shovel. I got to scoop my little shovel of dirt, so it felt really good to be part of that. Yeah, that was one of the main accomplishments. I think that felt good.
And then you transitioned. So did you transition off of Iowa Pork and then have a gap between National Pork, or what was that transition to National Pork Board?
It was a few years between the two of them. I was still involved with National Pork Board. I was on the Animal Science Committee at that time, and so I knew a lot of the people there, and a lot of what I'd done on the animal health side and the foreign animal disease preparedness was working with National Pork Board. So I knew a lot of the people going in, and it was just a matter of waiting my turn. We had somebody that had been president before me that was wanting to run, and so it was just waiting my turn. But I always knew I wanted to move on. I thought I could do more on a national level, and people were encouraging me. So it was just a natural transition for me to go from Iowa to national.
So talk us through that transition into national then, and some of the things that you've been focused on here today.
So when I first came on National Pork Board, I was all about animal health and animal production. That was my background, right? I ran a records bureau. I managed other sow farms. I had my own farm, and I had been on numerous committees and task forces for animal health, and I'd been on the diagnostic lab advisory board, and so that's where my focus was. And I came off, I was chairman of the National Swine Disease Council, and so I knew a lot of people in the industry there. So when ASF was going rampant over China, we started a task force to help the U.S. prepare for it and hopefully keep it out of this country. And when I got on National Pork Board, we did a tour of Europe to see how different countries were handling it, how they were trying to slow the spread or eliminate it. Learned a lot from that, and that was a huge part of my emphasis when I first got on. Also got involved with AgView as being a records bureau for other farms. I knew what it took to get producers to put records into a records bureau, and saw the dire need that this industry has for pig traceability. And we have to be able to find disease quickly if it does get into this country, and then we have to trace where it came from and where it went so we can stamp it out quickly and hopefully save the industry. And so
that was probably pretty apparent too when you visited Europe, because they have a ton of traceability systems from country to country and the whole passport system. Was that pretty evident when you visited there?
Yes, and the sharing of information too is more prevalent in Europe than it is in the U.S. And to convince producers that, hey, we got to work together if we're going to eliminate disease, and we need traceability if we're going to do that. So that was a big success story, I think, in my part, is I was able to be part of the development of AgView, which works great, and I'd encourage every producer in the country to utilize it. But we know it works. We have a large portion of the industry utilizing it now, and it's ready in time of crisis. And let's hope we never have the time of crisis, but we know we're ready.
It is pretty cool to have that in place in the case there is a crisis.
Yeah, and we're so much more prepared for foreign animal disease. We're doing so much testing of feral pigs down in the south because we know that that's a risk. We're doing lab submissions at all the major labs, just randomly testing anything that looks like it could be African swine fever. We're pretty confident that we'll find it quickly if it does get in the U.S., and then it's all about finding it, tracing it, and stamping it out.
Yeah, let's hope that never happens.
Yeah, knock on wood.
So when you joined National Pork Board, foreign animal disease was the thing. I remember people were even getting ASF fatigue because it was just everywhere in conversation. And then a couple years ago, everything kind of shifted into, all right, but we've got a significant demand issue that we got to keep our head around here. Can you talk about what that shift was, kind of how it took place, and what that's grown into? Because it seemed like the National Pork Board was very prepared for this shift in focus as they were wrapping up some of the key initiatives on the foreign animal disease side.
I don't know if we were prepared or not, Matthew. I think it came down to we had grassroots telling us, hey, you need to help us. You got to be able to do more. And then we had done a really good job at National Pork Board. We have a gal there, Kirsten Hafer, that just did an amazing job with insights and data. So we understood our consumer better than we ever have. We understood who buys pork, why they buy pork, different ethnicities, how they buy pork, different parts of the country, and then the demographics, the younger generation versus the older generation. And that's was the scary part, was the younger generation is not buying pork like us baby boomers are. And if we don't fix that, we don't have a future, right? As we age out and more young people come into this, we've got to be able to win that younger generation over. And we thought, and I think the staff thought at National Pork Board, that we're just going to take this information and hand it to retailers and to packers and processors, and they were going to utilize it and run with it and grow demand. And we found out, I think, pretty quickly that, hey, we're the ones that are passionate about this industry. We're the ones that really want to make a difference, and we've got to do this ourselves. And that's what was the start of this domestic marketing campaign.
Yeah, grab it by the reins and drive it.
Taste what pork can do,
Which is awesome. That was unveiled in May.
Yes.
And you guys have had some meetings. You're not ready to share all the information yet, but it sounds like things are going rather well.
Yeah, I think we did it right when we brought David Newman on board, and he brought some other key employees. We brought back Patrick Fleming, who was with Pork Board when they did their last marketing campaign. We just brought some amazing people in, and then the people that we had also. And the first thing they did is they rallied everybody in the industry behind this. They knew they couldn't do this alone, that they needed the retailers, the processors, everybody involved if we're really going to make a difference here. And they spent a year doing that, and then working with a national marketing group to plan how they're going to roll it out, and looking at the data and the insights, and already knowing going in where we get the most return on investment of producers' dollars. And I think that's something we have to always remind ourselves of at National Pork Board, that we're spending producer dollars, and they expect a return. And when I first got on the Pork Board, I questioned a little bit if we were getting a good return on everything we're doing, but I feel really good right now. I think we're really paying huge dividends for what we're doing with the producers' dollars.
You're absolutely addressing something that, for those who haven't become more familiar with the process of preparing for a campaign, running a campaign, maintaining a campaign, this is not something any producer could just simply do by themselves without a team.
Absolutely.
It's hard.
Yeah, and you look at who we're competing against and the dollars that they have. We had to rally the entire industry, and that's what feels so good. So, in just a week ago, we were in Kansas City. We hired the Barkley Group to do our domestic marketing campaign, and they showed us the initial results. And I've been asked not to share them right now because it's early, and we don't want to take too much credit for what's going on right now. But they're killing it. And if you look at what's happening with prices, the lean index of hogs right now is the highest it's been in 10 years. The demand for pork is pretty amazing right now. I think we can start taking a little bit of credit for it, Matthew, but
Are you starting to see a real, because, I mean, it's halving with generations. Are you starting to see a real tick back in the right direction, at least from some of the data?
Yes.
That's exciting.
And what's really exciting is we have all the big names on board. Walmart, Kroger, most of the brands are on board with this too. And the reason they are is because we've shown them how they can make more money with pork than they can with competing proteins right now. And we all know how expensive beef is. Mm-hmm. And so if there is ever a time in this industry to take a little more of the protein demand away from some other meats, it is now. And I think that's a big part of why we're getting such a huge response, because the timing is just perfect.
It's really cool, too, when you walk into a Hy-Vee in Des Moines, it's not necessarily the same as walking into a Hy-Vee in North Liberty. For whatever reason, the meat case isn't the same everywhere yet. But to walk in and see ground pork actually in the meat case, and then to even see chops that are like a premium grade, extra marbling and color, just the choice, the selection potential that's there. And I bought them. I bought both, and it was really fun to try them out. It's going to be really exciting to see that level of improvement across all meat cases in general. And it seems like it's starting to really make a good step in that direction.
Yeah, and that's a big emphasis behind what pork can do is consumers know bacon. They know sausage, they know pepperoni, they know ham, they know barbecue ribs, but we want to show them what else pork can do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the ground pork and different ways to prepare it, different recipes, and it can do so much more if we get the word out there.
Yeah, I need Hy-Vee to bring back the jalapeno bacon. I don't know if you tried that, but they took that away like 5 years ago. That was the best.
Yep.
Best
Everybody
bacon.
loves bacon.
So when you think about where the pork board is going and where the pork industry is going in general, we just came off of some really difficult times, obvious concern around some demand, but that's turning in the other direction. What is your 5 to 10 year outlook, and what gets you the most excited about what this industry could look like?
The opportunity to create more demand. I'm convinced that now is the time and that we can do this. And you look at pork's the number one protein in the world, and it can be in the United States too again. Yeah, I just think we need to do a better job with celebrating what we can do and showing the consumer what pork can do. So I'm excited about the future of the industry. There's concerns also. We always have our activist friends. There's always going to be people that don't think we should harvest animals for human consumption. And I don't think that will ever change. But I think if you get consumers to love your product, they're going to be your biggest supporters of what you do.
I think, one thing that has definitely been talked about around the demand campaign is from a taste and a flavor standpoint, is when you look at beef is beef, tastes like beef. Chicken tastes like chicken, turkey. But pork has a wide variety of flavors, from bacon to ham to chops to ribs to the pork shoulder. And I love how we're encouraging people to keep trying, because somebody might say, I don't like pork. All right, what's your favorite tailgating food? Oh, a brat. It's like, that's pork.
Yeah, they don't know.
They don't know because there's so much variety, reminding them that variety exists, and it's okay not to like a brat, but to love a rib. And get them to not just write off the entire genre because of one flavor they don't like when there's dozens more that they might just fall in love with.
It's amazing. We hired a research company to tell us how many flavors there were in pork, and they came up with over 100. And
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, I have no idea how they came up with that number, but I think it was like 111 different flavor nuances in pork. It's just amazing. So it depends a lot on what meat cut you're eating and how you prepare it, and you can get a lot of flavor out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up, I got some rapid fire questions for you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. First one is, what's that item on your bucket list towards the very tippy top that you're just urging to check off? I know climbing a mountain was one, and you've gotten that one taken care of. What's the next one?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for Kathy and me, it's for when I'm finally done with the pork board and I have some free time to travel with her and not do pork board traveling business. I want to take her along and put her in first class and go to New Zealand and Australia. I think she'll really like that. That's kind of one of my bucket list things I want to do.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a long flight.
Yes.
Yeah, we have pig flow in Australia, and so I went there in 22, and I'm headed there in a few months, and it's a really cool country. And it's funny because there's some maps out there that they try to take the culture of U.S. states and put them throughout Australia, and that Brisbane area they labeled as North Carolina, like California.
Yeah,
and it is the weirdest, coolest vibe of Eastern North Carolina mixed with like surfer California. Just a very different feel. And I've never done New Zealand, but I hear nothing but amazing things.
Yeah. I've been all over the world with the National Pork Board and Iowa Pork Board. And I've been to China a couple of times. I've been to Japan and Vietnam and Central America, South America, Canada, just all over the place. And I just want to experience a little more of that with Kathy and,
Absolutely.
and a little less with my buddies on Pork Board.
Yeah, the amount of times I go somewhere for the swine industry and I think to myself, oh, I can't wait to take my wife here someday. I'm assuming you had that exact same feeling in so many places.
I do, yes.
It's less stressful because now you know exactly what to do when you get there too.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
What's your favorite cut of pork?
I like you can just get it at Quick Star. It's like the bacon wrapped pork tenderloin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll sell that for $1.99. It's amazing.
I have not tried that there. Is it good?
It is really good, but yeah, the pork tenderloin, yeah, that is my favorite cut.
If you could go back in time and have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. I think I go all the way back to Jesus and say, hey, this religion thing, what's real and what's the myth? I really want to know what really is real and how should I live my life better?
That would be fascinating because when you look at when he did come and he took Jewish law and he sat down with the Sadducees and Pharisees and he separated the two. This is what's been man-made and this is what has been divinely inspired.
Right.
To be able to take what we have today and ask that same question, that would be very fascinating.
Yeah, you're on the same mind track I am. Yeah, I want to know what's real and what's man-made. Yeah.
If you could, so for that, would you go back and see him in his time, or would you pull him forward to our time?
I'd love to pull him forward. Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah,
it would be pretty crazy.
Yeah,
that'd be exciting. Last question for you would be: if you had a golden nugget, a bit of wisdom from your life you can share with listeners, what would that be?
Oh, surround yourself with great people and listen. Yeah, and develop people skills and listening skills and the ability to speak in front of crowds. Do that early in life because it's a lot tougher as you get older. Yeah. When I was young, I thought I could just outwork everybody, and I didn't need any of that. And I found out quickly that you need people skills, and you need to be able to have collaboration and unite people, unify boards and people behind what you're doing. And the sooner you figure that out in life, the better.
It's a very invisible set of traits as a kid growing up, right? You're paid to do a job. And just the ability to connect with people and have conversation and get them to collaborate and rally. There's more value there than almost anything else in life. And you can see that with the way people are.
Yeah, and that's so rewarding is when you can bring a board all together with a central mission and see it develop in front of you. There's nothing more rewarding than that. And that's what we're doing at National Pork Board.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Popular Pig. We aspire to learn and grow together through the experience and wisdom shared by our esteemed guests. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues within the swine industry. For more information, please go to popularpig.com to receive updates when new episodes are available. Popular Pig is brought to you by SwineTech, the award-winning creators of SmartGuard and PigFlow. To learn how PigFlow can help you streamline your workforce and reduce piglet and sow deaths, visit swinetechnologies.com.